They say the truth sets you free, but no one ever tells you how much it costs first. After the fire fades, after the betrayal turns to silence, what's left isn't peace, it's ashes. And beneath those ashes, something still breathes, the part of you that refuses to die, the part that still believes justice isn't revenge, it's clarity. This is Unforgiven, Part 2, The Truth Beneath the Ashes, where the lies are gone, but the wounds still speak. Morning breaks through Portland like an unwanted guest, too bright, too loud, too eager to expose what the night tried to hide. Evelyn Hart stands at the kitchen window of an empty house. The air still smells faintly of smoke and bleach, like something that was burned but not gone. 2 weeks have passed since the night she shot Ryan Blake. 2 weeks since the police took him away. Still breathing, but broken. The tabloids called it the Hartson tragedy. She calls it Tuesday. There's a strange quiet now. No lawyers knocking at the door. No reporters in the driveway. No sound except the clock ticking toward the next version of her life. She thought she'd feel peace. What she feels instead is the weight of survival, the ache that comes after you stop running, but your body hasn't realized it yet. Her phone buzzes. Ethan Ward's name lights up the screen. They've scheduled the pre-trial conference. He says, Charles's lawyers are still fighting to keep some of the financial evidence sealed, but the judge isn't buying it. We're winning. Evelyn nods, staring out at the gray horizon. Winning. She repeats softly, as if the word might break in her mouth. Ethan hesitates. You should come by the office. Mr. Trent wants to show you something. When she hangs up, she looks around the kitchen, the coffee cups, the half-finished plans taped to the fridge, the tiny proofs of a life she no longer lives. Then she grabs her coat and leaves before the quiet can start talking again. The Hartson Group building looks different now. Her father's name still sits on the glass, but the reflection staring back isn't his daughter anymore. She's harder now, sharper. A woman who learned that forgiveness can be a weapon when wielded at the right distance. Mr. Trent greets her in his office. His hair has turned whiter since the last time she saw him, but his eyes still hold that steady warmth, the kind that doesn't ask questions, only waits for the truth. He gestures to the file on his desk. Ethan's been digging deeper. You were right to question Charles's story about the family's lineage. Evelyn frowns. What do you mean? Trent opens the folder. Inside, a set of DNA reports. We tested a few items from your father's personal effects hair samples, letters, an old pen with traces of skin cells. We compared them to Charles Quinn's. They don't match. Evelyn stares at the page. So he's not your father's brother, no, not even close, not even. For a moment, the air leaves the room. Years of manipulation, of trust wrapped in bloodlines, all collapse into dust. Then who the hell is he? She whispers. Trent leans back. A fraud who built his empire on your father's kindness. And there's more. He passes another page, another name, Samuel Trent. Evelyn looks up. You. He nods slowly. Your father asked me to keep this secret until the day it could protect you. We were half-brothers. Evelyn, he found out before he died, but didn't want it public. He feared Charles would use the truth to destroy what he couldn't own. Evelyn's voice cracks, equal parts disbelief and grief. You're telling me my father's real brother has been right in front of me all this time? Yes, he says gently, and now you know why I've stayed close. I wasn't just guarding the company, I was guarding family. Evelyn takes a shaky breath, her throat thick with something she can't name. So everything Charles has, every lie, every deal, it all collapses if this comes out. Exactly. But we need to be careful. He's desperate now. And desperate men do ugly things. Evelyn nods. Then let's be uglier. That evening, Ethan drives her to the old Hart mansion, the one Charles still occupies under temporary guardianship, while the court sorts through the estate. It's raining again, the kind of rain that feels personal. Are you sure about this? Ethan asks. Yes, Evelyn says. If there are still documents hidden there, I'll find them before he does. They park 2 blocks away. The house glows faintly through the trees, golden and hollow, like a memory, pretending to be alive. Evelyn slips inside through the side gate she used to sneak out of as a teenager. The hallways smell the same cedar, dust, and betrayal. In the study, the floorboard near the altar creaks the same spot where she once found her father's hidden box. Now she kneels again, fingers tracing the seam. But this time, when she lifts it, there's something new, a folder marked with her father's handwriting. Inside, she finds photographs. Charles, younger, standing beside her father, and another man, Mr. Trent. Her father's note reads, "If you're reading this, then the house is no longer safe. Charles is not who he says he is. Sam is my brother. Protect him. Protect yourself." Evelyn's chest tightens. Proof. Finally. Tangible truth. Then she hears it, footsteps behind her, slow, purposeful, looking for something. Evie Charles stands in the doorway, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His smile is the same as always, smooth, poisonous. You should lock your doors, she says. The past has a way of walking back in. He chuckles. The past belongs to those who can afford to rewrite it. And you, my dear, are running out of ink. You're not even blood, she says coldly. You built your entire life on a lie. He shrugs. Names are just labels. Power is what makes them matter. Evelyn holds up the folder. Then I guess this just unlabels you for the first time. His face changes a flicker of panic beneath the arrogance. He takes a step forward. Be careful with that. You don't know the games you're playing. I learned from the best, she says. He firks. If you think you can win this, you're as naive as your father. Funny, she says. He thought I'd be smarter than you. Charles's eyes narrow. You won't survive this war. Evelyn, you don't have the stomach for what comes next. She steps closer until their shadows merge on the wall. Try me. When she leaves, the rain has turned to mist. She drives back to the city in silence, the folder on the passenger seat like a loaded gun. Later that night, she sits in her living room with a cup of untouched tea. The house hums quietly. No storm, no intruder. Just the stillness of a woman who knows exactly what must be done. She opens her laptop, begins drafting a motion to reopen her father's estate under new evidence. Her hands don't shake this time. Outside, dawn begins to rise over Portland. Pale and uncertain, Evelyn whispers to herself, the truth doesn't die. It just waits for someone brave enough to dig it up. And somewhere across the city, in an office lined with glass and lies, Charles Quinn feels something shift a tremor in the empire he built on borrowed blood. He doesn't know it yet, but the ashes are about to catch fire again. Rain claws at the glass of the cheap motel on Burnside Avenue. The ceiling leaks somewhere near the window. Each drop a slow metronome, marking the decay of a man who used to believe in control. Ryan Blake hasn't shaved in days. His reflection in the mirror looks like a stranger who still wears his face, but none of his pride. He's alive but not living. The newspapers have turned his name into a headline, his image into a warning. Disgraced executive under investigation. Wife files charges, mistress missing. Every word feels like another nail sealing him into the coffin of the man he used to be. He sits at the small table, a half-burnt cigarette trembling between his fingers. The phone beside him buzzes for the first time in days. Unknown number. He hesitates, then answers. Ryan Blake. Ryan. A voice says, smooth as polished glass. We need to talk. He freezes. Charles. Where the hell have you been? You vanish. The press starts a feeding frenzy, and now Evelyn's parading around like some savior of women's rights. You're making this too easy for her. Ryan laughs low, bitter. You think I planned any of this? I lost everything because of you. Correction. Charles replies. You lost everything because you were sloppy. You let your emotions dictate your moves. You fell in love with a liability. Ryan slams the phone down, but Charles keeps talking, voice coiled and calm. Listen to me. You and I are tied to the same corpse. If it goes down, we both suffocate. But if we work together, we can still turn the tide. Ryan closes his eyes. You sound like a man drowning who still thinks he can sell the water. You sound like a man who's forgotten what survival means. Charles says, meet me tomorrow night, midnight. My driver will pick you up. The line clicks. Ryan sits there for a long time, staring at the flickering neon light outside. His hands shake, not from fear, but from the dull ache of realization. The same man who taught him how to steal is now asking him how not to die. Across town, Evelyn stands in her father's old office. The scent of cedar and ink still lingers, faint as memory. Mr. Trent and Ethan are reviewing documents spread across the desk bank ledgers, false deeds, signed transfers. Charles is backed into a corner. Ethan says he's been meeting privately with Ryan's former associates, trying to reframe the narrative, make it look like you forged everything to cover your own embezzlement. Evelyn smirks. He's rewriting the script while the cameras are still rolling. Trent folds his glasses, voice calm but grave. He's desperate. That makes him reckless. You should prepare for the next move not in court, but outside it. What do you mean? There are stories the law can't protect you from. He says, public perception, rumor, fear. Charles will weaponize all three. You must stay 2 steps ahead. Evelyn leans against the desk, crossing her arms. Then we make him feel watched. Let him think every shadow has a camera. Ethan's eyes narrow. What are you planning? Something poetic, she says. He's been hiding behind illusions for years. Let's see how he handles one of mine. Midnight. A black car pulls into an underground garage beneath a half-finished building on the edge of the city. Ryan steps out, rain dripping from his hair. Charles Quinn waits near a pillar, coat pristine, eyes sharp. You look like hell, Charles says. Ryan lights a cigarette, feels like it too. Charles gestures toward a file on the hood of the car. Inside that is a draft settlement. If Evelyn drops the charges and signs over her shares, the board will quietly dissolve the investigation You'll walk free, and I'll rebuild what's left. Ryan stares at the folder. Why would she ever sign that? Because she's sentimental. Because she still believes justice and peace can share a roof. Ryan scoffs. You don't know her anymore. Charles steps closer. And you do. Don't fool yourself. Ryan, she's not fighting for you. She's fighting to erase you. I am offering you a chance to rewrite your ending. Ryan's hands curl into fists. I don't need your charity. Charles tilts his head. It's not charity. It's strategy. You distract her. I finish this. She trusts Ethan Ward and that old fool Trent too much. If I can't destroy her legally, I'll dismantle her alliances. Ryan looks away, but something sharp in Charles's tone hooks him back. You think she'll ever forgive you? Charles says softly. You think she'll let you walk free? No, Ryan. She'll build her empire on your ashes, unless you burn her first. The cigarette trembles in Ryan's hand. What do you want me to do? Charles smiles the kind of smile that tastes like gasoline. Find out what she knows, where she keeps her files, and if you can't steal her evidence, destroy it. The next morning, Evelyn receives a call from Detective Moore. Mrs. Hart, he says. You might want to sit down. She's already sitting. Go ahead. We trace the security footage from the Hartson estate. The night you confronted Charles, someone else was there, Ryan Blake. He met Charles afterward in a parking structure near the river. We think they're working together. Evelyn closes her eyes. She should have expected this. Betrayal doesn't end when the papers are signed. It just finds new disguises. Thank you, Detective, she says. Keep your team on it. When she hangs up, Ethan looks at her. What now? We let them think they're winning, she says. But from now on, we control every piece they touch. That evening, Evelyn returns home. The house feels different, heavier, quieter, as if holding its breath. She checks the locks, the windows, the back door. Everything seems untouched. Still, she senses something off a drawer, slightly ajar, a faint scent of smoke. She opens the study door and stops. On her desk sits a single object, a matchbook. The lantern room, the logo of the bar where her father's car accident had been reported years ago. A place tied to too many unanswered questions. Inside the cover, one line written in neat block letters. You don't know the full story. Her pulse quickens. Ryan, it has to be him. But why leave a clue instead of a threat? Evelyn picks up the matchbook, her reflection flickering in the window. You're not the only one who can play games, she whispers. Across the city, Ryan sits alone in his motel room again. The envelope of cash Charles gave him lies untouched on the bed. He stares at his phone, replaying the moment he left the matchbook on Evelyn's desk. He doesn't know why he did it. Maybe guilt, maybe pride, maybe both. When he finally closes his eyes, sleep comes jagged and short, full of flashes. Evelyn's face the day he met her, the day she caught him lying, the day she pulled the trigger outside. Thunder rolls. In another life, it might have sounded like applause. Back at Hartson Group, Ethan and Mr. Trent review the digital audit again. This section here, Ethan says, pointing to a red-marked transaction, ties Charles directly to the shell company that financed Ryan's last project. If we can trace the offshore accounts, we can collapse his entire network. Mr. Trent nods. But once we move, there's no going back. He'll retaliate. Ethan glances at the door, lowering his voice. Then we should be ready. Evelyn's strong, but she's bleeding more than she admits. Trent sighs. Pain doesn't weaken her, Ethan. It calibrates her. That night, Evelyn stands alone on her balcony. The rain has stopped, but the city still glows with the residue of storms. In the distance, she can see the reflection of Hartson Tower, her father's monument to integrity, now half owned by men who buried it in lies. She whispers into the wind, "If this is war, then let it burn clean, somewhere far below, in another part of the city." Charles Quinn raises a glass of whiskey and toasts the darkness. "To the game," he murmurs. Neither of them knows yet the board is shifting, and the next move will cost someone everything. The morning begins like every other pale, quiet, deceptive. Portland's skein is wrapped in fog, as if the city is keeping a secret too heavy for daylight. In the office of Hartson Group, Evelyn Hart leans over a conference table littered with papers, old medical files, notarized wills, faded photographs. Across from her, Ethan Ward scrolls through lines of encrypted data, while Samuel Trent, Mr. Trent, her late father's confidant, stands by the window, arms folded, eyes distant. "Run the sequence again," Evelyn says, her voice steady but thin. Ethan nods. "Already did. Twice. Same result." He turns the laptop toward her. On the screen, 2 DNA profiles glow in pale blue lines, her father's and Charles Quinn's. They don't align, not even close. Mr. Trent exhales. That settles it. Then, Charles isn't family. He never was. Evelyn presses her fingers to her temple. He forged everything: the birth certificate, The records, the whole story about being my father's half-brother. He didn't just forge it, Ethan says quietly. He replaced it. The original archives were wiped years ago. We found fragments in the state's database, enough to prove tampering. But what's worse, he hesitates. Say it. Evelyn demands. The missing blood sample from your father's accident, the one Charles claimed was destroyed. It wasn't. I found it in a private lab tied to a shell corporation. Guess whose name is on the payment authorization? Evelyn looks up. Ryan's. Ethan nods. Ryan's. Mr. Trent turns from the window. So the two of them work together to rewrite your father's legacy, to steal not only your company, but your bloodline. If this is true, Evelyn, they've committed more than fraud. This is identity theft at a generational level. Evelyn's voice hardens. Then we dig until there's nothing left to bury them with. That evening, Evelyn drives to the state archives. The building sits near the river, quiet as a mausoleum. She's granted special access to her father's case file, the one from his car accident years ago. The crash that Charles always called tragic but mercifully swift. The file is thick with dust, edges curled from neglect. She opens it slowly. The photographs are clinical crushed metal, shattered glass, a wedding ring on a lifeless hand. But then, buried beneath the official pages, she finds something handwritten, a note in her father's looping penmanship. If I don't make it, Sam knows the truth. Protect Evelyn. She is the only blood left. Her breath catches. Sam, Mr. Trent. She flips through the file, searching for anything more, and then she sees it, a small plastic evidence bag, mislabeled and half-torn. Inside, a blood-stained cufflink engraved with the letter Q, Charles. The realization hits her like cold water. He was there that night. By the time she returns to the office, the city is asleep. Ethan is still there, a cup of cold coffee beside him. She drops the bag on the desk. He was at the crash, she says. He staged the whole thing. Ethan stares. You're sure? She nods. The cufflink matches the set he wore in every company photo from that year. He didn't just exploit my father's death, he caused it. Ethan's jaw tightens. Then it's murder. No, she says, shaking her head. It's worse. It's patience. He killed my father's life, not his body. He erased him. Mr. Trent enters quietly. I think your father suspected as much. That's why he left the message in the photo frame. He knew Charles's greed would turn fatal. Evelyn looks between them, her resolve crystallizing. Then we expose him publicly, not in court, not behind sealed doors in the daylight. Every lie, every drop of forged blood. He made me his enemy. Now he'll see what that costs. The next morning, news hits the city like wildfire, Hearts in group. Internal audit reveals forged bloodline records. CEO Charles Quinn. Under scrutiny, reporters flood the building, cameras flash, statements are demanded. But Evelyn remains calm, composed, surgical. At the press conference, she steps to the podium, dressed in black, the color of truth in mourning. My name is Evelyn Hart. She begins. I have been called many things: a widow, a victim, an heiress. But I stand before you today not as any of those, but as a daughter. My father, Robert Hart, built this company on trust. That trust was betrayed by the man who claimed to be his brother, Charles Quinn. Recent evidence proves that he is not related to my family in any way, and that he falsified documents to seize control of my father's estate. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Cameras click like angry insects. Evelyn continues. For years, he used my husband, Ryan Blake, as his accomplice. Together, they manipulated records, laundered funds, and corrupted the name my father gave everything for. But the truth, she says, voice tightening, has a way of finding its way home even through blood that isn't yours. She pauses, letting the silence sharpen. I will not forgive. Not yet. Forgiveness is a grace I reserve for the innocent. Then she steps away, leaving the microphones gasping in her wake. Across the city, Charles watches the broadcast from his penthouse. His glass of bourbon trembles slightly in his hand. She's smarter than I thought, he mutters. Beside him, a man in a tailored suit, one of his private consultants, says, the DNA leak is bad. If the board verifies it, they'll strip you of every asset tied to the Hartson name. Charles sets the glass down with a click. Then we make them question the leak, discredit the source. If she wants to play with blood, let's see how clean hers really is. He walks to the window, rain streaking down the glass. His reflection looks older, meaner. Finds something in her past, something that makes her bleed for real. Meanwhile, Evelyn sits in her father's study, alone. The fire flickers low, shadows stretching like old ghosts. She runs her fingers over the cufflink, the last piece of proof connecting her father's death to Charles. Her phone buzzes, a text from an unknown number. Truth cuts both ways. Attached is a photo, her father's wrecked car, from an angle she's never seen before. In the background, barely visible, stands a man in a dark coat, holding a lighter. Her heart skips. She knows that lighter. It's the one she found in Ryan's drawer years ago, engraved with his initials. For a moment, everything inside her stops. She whispers, "No." But the truth doesn't care about disbelief. It only knows gravity. The next day, she confronts Mr. Trent and Ethan. Ryan was there too. She says, voice trembling with fury, he wasn't just Charles's puppet. He helped stage the crash. Ethan looks stunned. Evelyn, that doesn't make sense. He would have been barely out of college. He was working for Charles back then. She replies, interning at one of his subsidiaries. He had access, motive, and now proof. Mr. Trent's voice is soft but heavy. If this is true, Evelyn, then the man you married helped kill your father. Evelyn turns away, fighting the nausea rising in her chest. Not kill Barry, and now I'll dig him up, too. Outside, thunder rolls again. The rain starts not cleansing this time, but accusatory. The city, the company, the legacy, all of it has become a crime scene written in water. And somewhere, in a hospital room, under police watch, Ryan Blake opens his eyes for the first time since the shooting. The nurse rushes to call the detective, but before anyone arrives, Ryan whispers to himself, almost laughing, Evelyn still doesn't know everything. Then he closes his eyes again, the storm outside echoing the pulse of a secret that refuses to die. The rain hasn't stopped for 3 days. Portland looks washed raw streets, shining like open wounds. Windows streaked with gray light. It's the kind of weather that erases boundaries between sky and river, between what's buried and what refuses to stay that way. Evelyn Hart drives toward her childhood home, the one she once promised herself she would never step into again. The mansion sits at the end of a narrow road, its stone walls slick with rain, its windows glowing faintly like eyes that have been awake too long. Inside, everything smells the same cedar, dust, and the faint trace of her father's cologne, but now it also carries something else tension, electric and waiting. The air feels crowded with memory. Mr. Trent and Ethan Ward are already there, standing by the old family altar. The faint flicker of candlelight trembles across their faces. He's coming, Ethan says quietly. Evelyn nods. She can feel it too. The inevitable always announces itself long before it enters the room. The front door slams open. Charles Quinn strides in with 2 of his lawyers in tow, umbrella dripping rainwater onto the marble floor. Behind him, a step slower and smaller, comes Ryan Blake, his arm in a sling, his face pale but defiant. Evelyn's pulse tightens. You shouldn't be here. Ryan smirks. Funny. That's what I used to tell you. Charles raises a hand, signaling for quiet. Let's not turn this into melodrama, shall we? We're here to discuss the property, your father's estate, the company's assets, the alleged forgery of a will that never existed. Evelyn looks at him, calm and sharp. The will exists. You just replaced it with one that served you. Charles chuckles. Allegedly. Mr. Trent steps forward, voice steady. We have proof. Charles. DNA. Notary stamps. And the original documents all verified. You are not Robert Hart's brother. You are an imposter who stole a man's bloodline to build your own fortune. Charles's smile falters. Careful, Sam. Or should I say, Samuel Hart. It's convenient that your so-called evidence suddenly appears right when you stand to inherit everything. Ethan glances at Evelyn. He's baiting you, but she doesn't flinch. She turns to Ryan instead. You knew, didn't you? All those years you played the loyal husband. You knew who he really was. Ryan's jaw tightens. I knew he wasn't perfect, but I also knew what we could gain. You mean what you could take, she says. Ryan laughs bitterly. We were the same once. Evelyn, don't pretend your hands are clean. You wanted the power, the legacy. You just wanted to believe you could have both justice and revenge in one neat package. She steps closer. You don't get to talk about justice. You helped kill my father. For a moment. The room goes silent except for the crackle of rain against glass. Ryan looks away. His silence is its own confession. Charles breaks the stillness. Enough of this theater. You wanted the altar room, the sacred family place, fine. Let's end it here. You think you've unearthed some hidden truth, Evelyn, but the law doesn't care about sentiment. You can't prove who your father trusted most. Evelyn's gaze drifts to the family portrait above the altar, her father standing beside her as a child. Mr. Trent smiling faintly behind them. She remembers the note she found in the hidden box. Her father's handwriting, when truth feels dangerous. Remember where the foundation lies. She walks to the altar, pressing her palm against the carved wooden base. The foundation, she murmurs, then louder, open it. Ethan kneels and pries at the seam. The old wood creaks, then gives way. Inside lies a sealed envelope wrapped in wax, her father's seal, untouched for years. Evelyn breaks it carefully. A folded letter and a flash drive. She hands the drive to Ethan. He plugs it into his laptop and a video flickers onto the screen. Grainy, old, but clear enough. Her father appears, sitting in his office. "If you're watching this," he says, voice weary but certain, "then the wrong man has claimed my name. Charles Quinn is not my brother. Samuel Trent is. I've left proof of this in the original corporate filings and private correspondence. Evelyn, my daughter, this company and everything tied to it belongs to you. Guard it with the truth, not with fear." The video ends. No one speaks for a long time. Then Charles explodes. "This is manipulation. A fake recording." Mr. Trent shakes his head. "The metadata on the drive confirms the date. 12 days before your so-called accident. It's authentic." Charles lunges forward, grabbing the laptop, but Ethan blocks him. "Don't. Get out of my way," Charles snarls, shoving him aside. Papers scatter, the candlelight shivers, and for a moment, the room feels alive with chaos. All the ghosts finally screaming at once. Evelyn's voice cuts through it. "This house isn't yours, Charles. It never was." He turns toward her, eyes blazing. "You think this changes anything? You think the board will believe a woman who shot her husband and conspired with a bitter old man to rewrite history?" Evelyn steps closer until they're face to face. They'll believe a woman who has nothing left to lose. Charles's breath hitches. There's something in her eyes that unnerves him. Not rage, not fear, but the calm of someone who has already walked through fire and survived. "You're finished," she says quietly. "Every lie you told ends here, in the same room where my father prayed for mercy you never had." Suddenly, a loud crack echoes through the house, thunder outside, or something heavier. One of the candles tips, wax spilling down the side of the altar. Ryan flinches. "Evelyn, stop this. You don't understand." She turns to him. "Then explain it to me. Explain why you were there the night my father died." Ryan's face drains of color. He was going to expose us. The fraud, the offshore accounts, everything. Charles said he'd only scare him, make it look like an accident. I didn't know. Her voice breaks. "You didn't stop him?" He looks at her, then broken, ruined. "I loved you, Evelyn. I thought if we had everything, we could be free." "Free," she says. "You don't know what that word means." Before he can answer, sirens wail in the distance, a growing sound slicing through the storm. Ethan checks his phone. Detective Moore's here. He got the video feed. Charles realizes it too late. "You recorded this." Evelyn's lips curve into a quiet, exhausted smile. "You taught me that control is everything. I learned from the best." The front doors burst open. Officers fill the hall. Charles tries to run, but two detectives grab him. forcing his arms behind his back. You have the right to remain silent, one says. Ryan doesn't resist. He just sinks onto the floor, head bowed, whispering something Evelyn can't hear. Maybe her name. Maybe an apology too late to matter. Mr. Trent stands beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. It's over. Evelyn shakes her head slowly. No, it's only over for them. She walks to the altar, relights the fallen candle, and stares into the flame. For me, she says softly, this is the beginning. Outside, the sirens fade. Rain keeps falling, not as punishment, but as absolution. The trial hasn't even begun, but the aftermath already feels like a sentence. The headlines are merciless. CEO arrested for fraud and attempted homicide. Beneath them, smaller fonts whisper another name, Ryan Blake, key accomplice and husband of Evelyn Hart. Evelyn doesn't read the papers anymore. The truth doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be endured. But the city does what it always does, devours tragedy, forgets, and moves on. She stays quiet, working through the wreckage company meetings, court filings, interviews with lawyers who speak in polite monotones about damage control and liability. One afternoon, Detective Moore calls. Ryan's out on bail. His mother posted it. Evelyn pauses. His mother, Mrs. Blake, Moore says, lives on Hawthorne. I thought you'd want to know. She doesn't respond. There's nothing to say. But later that night, she finds herself driving down that street anyway out of habit or maybe unfinished grief. The Blake house is small and weathered, its porch light dim, its mailbox rusted at the corners. Evelyn parks across the road and sits for a long time, engine running, watching the shadows move behind the curtains. When she finally steps out, the cold bites like old guilt. She knocks once. The door opens slowly. Evelyn, says Mrs. Blake, a frail woman in a wool cardigan. Her eyes tired, but kind. Evelyn hesitates. I didn't mean to intrude. I just heard he was here. Mrs. Blake nods, her voice a whisper. He's resting. He barely sleeps. The doctors say it's the shock or the shame. Evelyn looks down. I'm sorry, Mrs. Blake, for everything. The older woman shakes her head. You have nothing to be sorry for, dear. You told the truth. My son, he made his choices. They stand there in the doorway for a moment, two women bound by the same man, both carrying different kinds of loss. Would you like to come in? Mrs. Blake asks gently. Evelyn nods. Inside. The house smells of lavender and soup. The walls are lined with old photographs Ryan as a child, smiling with his father by a fishing dock, Ryan at graduation, his arm around his mother, Ryan and Evelyn on their wedding day, both radiant and naive. Mrs. Blake pours tea and sets the cups carefully on the table. "He still keeps your picture," she says quietly. Even now, Evelyn stares at the framed photo, the two of them on the balcony of their old house. Wind in her hair, his hand on her shoulder. It looks like a love that never knew it was dying. "I don't understand," Evelyn says softly. "He had everything. Why throw it away?" Mrs. Blake sighs, folding her hands. "Because some men mistake love for ownership. They think if they lose control, they lose everything. He's been like that since he was a boy, always afraid someone might leave before he could." Evelyn looks at her. "And you?" "I stayed," she says simply. "That was my mistake." From down the hallway comes a sound, a door creaking, soft footsteps. Ryan appears, thinner than she remembers, his arm still in a sling. His eyes meet hers, and for a second, time folds in on itself all the years of laughter, of silence, of betrayal collapsing into one unbearable moment. "Evelyn," he says, voice low. She doesn't move. "You shouldn't be here." He gives a hollow smile. "You came to me. I came to say goodbye." Ryan flinches, as if the word itself burns. "Don't do that. Not yet." Evelyn's gaze is steady. "There's nothing left between us. Ryan, not love, not hate, just consequences." He nods slowly. "I deserve that." Then his mother steps in, voice trembling. "Ryan, please." He turns to her gently. "It's okay, Mom." She should say what she needs to. Evelyn's voice softens. "Do you even understand what you took from me? My father, my peace, the part of me that believed love meant safety." Ryan's eyes glisten. "I didn't know Charles would stop." Her tone cuts through him like glass. "You always knew what he was. You just didn't care. As long as he gave you what you wanted." He lowers his head. "I thought I could fix it. That if I made enough money, built something bigger, you'd forgive me. I did forgive you," she says. "Once. That's why it hurts this much." Silence stretches between them, long, heavy, and final. Mrs. Blake stands by the table, holding her cup as if it might steady her heart. Evelyn steps closer, placing a small envelope on the counter. "There's money in here, enough to cover the next few months. And my lawyer's card, he can help with the legal side of what's coming." Mrs. Blake looks at it, her eyes filling with tears. You don't have to. I do, Evelyn says, because despite everything, you were kind to me when no one else was. The older woman nods, tears spilling down her cheeks. You were the only good thing that ever happened to him. Evelyn forces a small smile. Then maybe that's enough. She turns to leave, but Ryan's voice stops her. Evelyn, he says, when they asked me at the station if I regretted anything, I told them no, I couldn't, but I lied. I regret everything. I regret not holding your hand that night you cried over your father's picture. I regret every silence, every lie, She interrupts him gently, then regret it quietly. He nods, tears threatening but never falling. Will you ever forgive me? Evelyn looks at him for a long moment, then whispers, forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, but someday I hope we both find peace. And she leaves, walking out into the rain without looking back. Outside, she leans against her car, breathing hard. The storm has softened into a drizzle, the kind that blurs the streetlights into halos. Through the window, she sees Mrs. Blake wrap her arms around her son, a mother's embrace, fierce and broken, holding the ruins of everything she once prayed for. Evelyn watches, and for the first time in months, tears fill her eyes, not out of pain, but out of recognition, because somewhere deep inside, she understands now not all love saves you. Some love only teaches you what survival costs. She wipes her face, starts the car, and drives away, headlights cutting through the mist, into a night that feels less like an ending and more like a fragile kind of mercy. The next morning, a letter arrives at Evelyn's doorstep. It's from Mrs. Blake. The handwriting is shaky, but graceful. Dear Evelyn, thank you for coming. I don't know what will happen to my son, but I know that what you did tonight, standing in that doorway, speaking truth without cruelty, that's what forgiveness looks like. You may not see it yet, but you've already begun to heal. With love, Margaret Blake. Evelyn folds the letter carefully and places it in her drawer beside her father's tape. 2 relics, one of pain, one of grace. She whispers into the quiet. Maybe that's enough to start again. Outside, the first light of morning spills across the city, and for the first time, Evelyn doesn't look away. The courthouse is a cathedral of glass and stone, tall, cold, echoing with the kind of silence that only justice seems to command. For the first time in months, the air feels lighter in Portland. The storm that had stalked the city for weeks has finally passed, leaving the streets washed clean. Though Evelyn Hart knows better, some stains don't fade with rain. She sits at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped, breath steady. The trial of Charles Quinn and Ryan Blake versus the state of Oregon has drawn half the city's attention. Cameras outside, reporters packed in the lobby. Everyone wants a glimpse of the woman who turned her husband and uncle into symbols of greed and ruin. Mr. Trent sits beside her, older now, pale but unshaken. Ethan Ward is behind them, scanning documents, his composure as precise as ever. Evelyn has learned something in these long months. The truth isn't a weapon you swing. It's a weight you carry. And today, she plans to set it down once and for all. The prosecution opens first. Your Honor, the attorney begins. This is not just a case about corporate fraud. It is about the systematic theft of identity, legacy, and truth. Charles Quinn faked a bloodline to steal a company he never built, and Ryan Blake, he turned slightly toward the defense table, was his enabler, his accomplice, and his heir apparent in deceit. Across the room, Ryan sits beside his lawyer, his face expressionless, his left arm still bound in a sling. Charles Quinn, in contrast, looks defiant, his silver hair slicked back, his cufflinks gleaming the same letter Q engraved into them that Evelyn once found at the scene of her father's death. When the prosecutor plays the old video of Robert Hart, Evelyn's father, the room stills. If you're watching this, the man in the grainy footage says, then the wrong man has claimed my name. Charles Quinn is not my brother. Samuel Trent is... My daughter is the rightful heir to Hartson Group. Protect her. The courtroom murmurs. Cameras click. Evelyn doesn't move. She's memorized every inflection of her father's voice, the weariness, the certainty, the love. It hits her the same way every time, like an ache she can't outgrow. Charles leans toward his lawyer, whispering furiously. His arrogance is cracking at the edges. When it's her turn to testify, Evelyn walks to the stand with the same slow grace she learned from surviving. The bailiff swears her in, and she sits, facing the courtroom that has built her into both villain and savior. Mrs. Hart, the prosecutor says, how long were you married to Ryan Blake? 8 years, she answers. And when did you discover his involvement with Charles Quinn? Too late? She says softly, but in time to stop them. He nods. Can you tell the court what you mean by that? Evelyn glances briefly at Ryan, then back to the jury. Charles used Ryan, but Ryan let himself be used. He had a choice to stand with me or to sell what wasn't his. He chose the latter. The defense lawyer rises, Objection, emotional speculation, sustained, the judge says. But the damage is done. The jurors are watching Ryan now not with sympathy, but with the unease reserved for those who ruin what loves them. The prosecutor continues. Mrs. Hart, why did you decide to pursue this case personally instead of through private arbitration? Evelyn takes a breath. Because I wanted the truth to be public. My father believed silence was protection. I believed it too, once. But silence only protects the wrong people. A flicker of recognition crosses Ethan's face behind her. The same sentence her father used to tell her when she was young. Truth isn't what saves you. It's what keeps you from becoming like them. When it's the defense's turn, Charles takes the stand. His lawyer tries to control the narrative. Mr. Quinn, do you deny these allegations? I do, Charles says, his tone still sharp. Robert Hart and I were family. The so-called DNA evidence is fabricated. This entire case is an emotional crusade orchestrated by a bitter woman who can't separate grief from greed. He gestures toward Evelyn. She's rewriting history to make herself look noble. But her company thrived under my leadership. She didn't care about Hartson Group until it was profitable again. This isn't about justice. It's about vengeance. Evelyn watches him, quiet. Mr. Quinn. The prosecutor interrupts. Is this your signature on Exhibit 23? The deed transferring Hartson assets to your personal shell company? Charles's eyes flicker. My legal team handled those. I don't recall signing it. Your digital fingerprint is embedded in the file. A ripple of laughter passes through the audience. Charles swallows. For the first time, his confidence falters. Then the prosecutor plays the final piece, an audio recording. Charles's voice from months earlier. She won't survive this. Leak whatever you have. I want her name ruined before the hearing. She'll learn that no woman humiliates me and walks away. The courtroom falls silent. Charles closes his eyes. That was taken out of context. The prosecutor smiles. Of course it was. Later, during recess, Evelyn steps outside into the courtyard. The sun has broken through the clouds for the first time in days. The air smells of wet stone and something faintly clean like rebirth. Ethan joins her. You did well in there, he says. She nods. It doesn't feel like winning. It just feels quieter. He looks at her, half smiling. That's what peace sounds like. Evelyn. It's never loud. She glances toward the sky. Do you think it's over? He hesitates. The trial, maybe. The ghosts, probably not. She exhales. I can live with that. When the court reconvenes, the verdict comes quickly. Charles Quinn, guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, obstruction of justice. Ryan Blake, guilty of aiding and abetting corporate conspiracy. With sentence reduction for cooperation, the judge reads the words like a prayer to an indifferent God. Charles sits still, jaw clenched, pride calcified into silence. Ryan looks down, eyes hollow. For the first time, Evelyn doesn't see her husband, only the man who taught her how dangerous love could be when it wears ambition's face. After the sentencing, she walks through the empty hallway alone. The marble floor gleams under the afternoon light. Her heels click softly, each step a punctuation mark in the story she never wanted to write. She stops before the exit, glancing at her reflection in the glass, older, stronger, lonelier. Mr. Trent joins her. Your father would have been proud. Evelyn smiles faintly. He'd tell me it took me long enough. They both laugh quietly. It feels strange, human, almost healing. Trent's hand trembles as he touches her arm. You've done what he couldn't. You've burned the rot out of this family. Evelyn looks toward the courthouse steps, sunlight spilling over the stone. I didn't burn it, she says softly. It burned itself. I just stopped pretending it was still a home. That night, Evelyn returns to the ocean, the same cottage, the same quiet shore. She lights a small fire in the sand, feeding it with the papers she no longer needs: court filings, copies of fake contracts, Charles's letters, Ryan's apologies. Each page curls and blackens, rising into the cold air as ash. She whispers, for what was stolen, and for what I survived. When the fire dies, she kneels and presses her hand into the warm sand, feeling its pulse fade beneath her touch. It's all the same fire: ash, salt, memory. Everything that hurt her now, part of something larger, something calm as the tide creeps closer, washing over the last trace of flame. Evelyn murmurs, the truth doesn't destroy. It clears the ground for something new. For the first time, she believes it. Morning drifts over the Oregon coast like a sigh, slow, pale, forgiving. The tide pulls back with the gentleness of something that has seen enough grief to understand its weight. Evelyn Hart stands on the shoreline in her father's old wool coat, her hair loose in the wind. For the first time in years, there is no sound of sirens, no echoes of raised voices, just the ocean breathing in rhythm with her. 6 months have passed since the verdict. Charles Quinn is serving his sentence at a federal facility outside Seattle, his empire dismantled and his name stripped from every building that once bore it. Ryan Blake remains in a state penitentiary, writing letters that Evelyn never opens. And the Hartson group, her father's creation, her inheritance, her battlefield, now belongs to her again. But she doesn't live in Portland anymore. She sold her apartment, gave half her savings to a victim's foundation, and moved here, to this small coastal town her father Fulfer once took her to as a child. He used to tell her, when the sea looks gray, it means it's honest. The sky's just telling the truth. Now, she finally understands what he meant. The mornings follow a quiet rhythm: coffee, a walk by the shore, letters from the city. She doesn't answer. Mr. Trent visits sometimes. Though his health is failing, Ethan checks in once a week, managing the company from afar. They've both offered to help her rebuild, to make Hartson a symbol of integrity again. But Evelyn's no longer chasing symbols. She's learning how to exist without fighting. One afternoon, she drives to the nearby town library, a small brick building that smells of salt and paper. Inside, a local journalist recognizes her. Mrs. Hart, the woman says, smiling politely. Are you working on your memoir yet? The world's waiting to hear your side. Evelyn returns the smile, soft but distant. I've told my story enough. Now I just want to live it. Later, she visits the rehab center. She quietly funds the Hart Foundation, a safe house for women rebuilding their lives after financial or emotional abuse. A group of them are painting the walls when she arrives. Laughter fills the hall, bright, unguarded, human. One of the younger women, maybe 22, approaches shyly. You're Evelyn Hart, right? The woman who took down those men? Evelyn laughs slightly. I'm the woman who survived them. The girl smiles. Same thing, isn't it? Evelyn pauses. Maybe. But survival isn't the ending people think it is. It's the beginning of everything that comes after. The girl nods, and Evelyn helps her hang a framed quote on the wall. It reads, "Not all flames destroy. Some reveal what was hidden in the dark." That night, she walks the beach again, the sky bruised with violet and gold. In her hand is a letter, Ryan's most recent one, the only one she ever opened. Evelyn, I don't expect forgiveness. I wouldn't know what to do with it if you gave it. But I wanted you to know the night you left, when I saw my mother cry for me, I finally understood what I took from you. You lost a father. I took away the man who should have been your peace. If the world ever gives me a chance to live again, I'll spend it quietly, trying to become the kind of person you deserve to love. R. Evelyn reads the words slowly, letting them dissolve into the sound of the tide. She doesn't cry. She doesn't feel anger either. Just a stillness that feels like truth, the kind that doesn't demand answers. She kneels in the sand, places the letter beneath a smooth gray stone, and lets the waves take what the wind doesn't. Goodbye, Ryan, she whispers. The ocean answers with a sigh. A week later, Mr. Trent passes away peacefully in his sleep. At the small memorial, Evelyn stands beside Ethan, the sea wind cold on their faces. He told me once, Ethan says quietly, that your father left him one instruction when Evelyn is ready. Don't tell her what to do. Just stand beside her until she remembers who she is. Evelyn smiles faintly. He did that perfectly. They scatter Trent's ashes into the water. The sea takes him without protest, folding the past into its endless gray horizon. That night, Evelyn writes in her journal something she hasn't done in years. There's no revenge that feels as heavy as peace. I thought winning meant ending them, but it meant ending the part of me that needed to fight. Maybe forgiveness isn't mercy. Maybe it's choosing to stop bleeding on the pieces of what broke you. She closes the notebook, leaving the last line unfinished because some stories are meant to stay open. Weeks later, she returns to Portland for a single day. The board insists she attend the unveiling of Hartson's new headquarters, smaller, humbler, rebuilt under her leadership. The lobby features a single plaque, engraved with her father's words. Integrity isn't what you keep when it's easy. It's what you hold when everything asks you to let go. After the ceremony, Ethan catches up with her outside. You could stay. You know, the city misses you. She smiles. The city loved the story more than the woman in it, and I'm done being a story. He nods. Then what are you now? She glances up at the sky, where light breaks clean through the clouds. Just someone who finally stopped trying to rewrite the past. Back at the coast, the evenings grow warmer. The seabirds return. Evelyn spends her days painting, gardening, answering letters from women who tell her her story gave them courage to leave, to speak, to begin again. She never replies with advice. Only 2 words, keep walking. One evening, she sits on her porch with a cup of tea, watching the sunset swallow the horizon. A child from the neighboring house runs past, chasing the tide. His laughter cuts through the sound of the waves, pure, unscarred. Evelyn smiles, whispering, that's what forgiveness sounds like. As the last light fades, she closes her eyes and listens. The world feels still, suspended between endings and beginnings. In that silence, she realizes something her father once tried to teach her. Peace isn't a reward, it's a decision. And she's finally made hers. She stands, walks toward the shore, and lets the water reach her ankles. The sea is cold, grounding, alive. Her reflection trembles on the surface, not the woman she was, not the one they tried to break, but someone whole, unnamed, unburdened. For the first time, Evelyn Hart doesn't need to be forgiven. She simply is, and that is her silent triumph. The storm is over now, but some storms don't end. They just learn to rest inside you. Evelyn Hart has found her silence, not as surrender, but as proof that healing doesn't need to be loud. This was Unforgiven, Part 2. The Truth Beneath the Ashes, a story about the weight of truth and the quiet kind of triumph that comes when you no longer need to be forgiven. If this story stayed with you tonight, subscribe to Calm Mind Journal, where every story begins with pain and ends with peace.